Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I am Adam Hancock. I'm here today with Jordan Culler, and we are about to peel back the layers on one of the most mysterious communities in all of the new Waterside at Lakewood Ranch's releases. This is a next year release. There's not a single piece of information on the internet. You can't Google, people didn't even know the name. We feel like we have 99% of the information. We've backed our way into it. We are going to use a similar community by the same builder to visually represent that. So I hope you find a ton of value in that, and let's hop in. All right, so let's first get into the neighborhoods. So real quick preface, I asked Jordan Culler to join me. She's a real estate agent in Sarasota with our company, the Sunshine State Company, but she has a really unique background and perspective when it comes to this conversation. So it's really useful, I think, to yin and yang, not only with this particular builder, but also with like a few other builders that are also in Lakewood Ranch, and some really high-end, more uppity-up builders, a lot of the mid-level stuff. So I think it's gonna be really helpful to have that conversation. All right, so let's get into high-level stats. So Emerald Landing in Waterside, number of homes, any gauge?
I'm gauging around 200, give or take, yep. And I think it's gonna be split, single family and townhomes.
So I know, so it looks like to me the location's going to be like where Nautique sits on, we'll show a rendering here, but where Nautique sits on Kingfisher Lake, which is really attractive. It gets like really close to Fruitville. It's on the big lake everybody wants. This one looks like it's gonna be next to it. So are you thinking like they're gonna play on that water play, walkability, all that kind of stuff?
Definitely, I think it's gonna fall under their central living division, which is generally their urban infill type of homes, similar to Payne Park and what you see up in Tampa and St. Petersburg, where they really play on walkability, lifestyle, and they build their homes to accommodate that type of living.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you looked up Central Living, they've done a lot of urban infill like Jordan's referencing, but we're standing at Payne Park, which is a mile outside of our office in downtown Sarasota, and you can see that kind of aesthetic, where it's really like this like loft style, almost like northeastern thing. And Waterside, if you've been there, that district really lives that aesthetic, so it seems like it'll be an interesting fit. So with that being said, so you have 200, you split them. So let's say 100 are single families, 100 are not. What are you thinking, like floor plans, width of lots? Like what do you think they're gonna do?
So based off of my knowledge of Weekly, for the central living single family homes, I think they're gonna range from 40 to 60 feet.
Okay.
I think their 40s and 50s are probably gonna be rear load, maybe 18 to 1900 square foot homes. And then the 60, you'll be able to build like a 3,000 square foot front load regular single family home. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I think if you did, you know, it's interesting because like I saw that with Nautique by MI Homes, is a lot of people like that carriage house, courtyard style thing, but a lot of that's old.
Right.
Like if you did downtown Sarasota or Hyde Park in Tampa, that's like restored, you know? Not necessarily my jam. I like new construction. So if someone built that aesthetic, I think a lot of people would prefer that. I think a narrow lot, which could be a negative on like a bigger property or a regular neighborhood like the Isles or the Lake Club, in this location, I think it's an asset because of the aesthetic. And then 10 floor plans, 200 lots, half single family, half not. What are the not single families?
I believe they're going to be townhomes like
Okay.
what we see in Payne Park. I think they're going to rinse and repeat. They did so well there, you know, being in the suburbs of downtown, catering to folks that want that lifestyle with the vertical living. I think you'll have probably 2 corner units with elevators and 1 interior plan to make up a stack of 4 homes.
Yeah. Well, so if you did this way, these are 2,000 square feet, right? Yeah, so the townhome thing's interesting because they are attached, like these are them basically.
Right.
So you could see like how, depending on what you cared about, right? How the end units would give you the windows and probably a higher premium price point with no one on the side of you. But these are big, right? So if you're not someone that values like needing to be detached, then that same HOA fee covers, exterior maintenance a lot of times, the roof because it's attached, that kind of thing. But you can see these things are, when you say townhome, they're not these little rinky-dink things.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. All right, so finally, before we hop in to show a couple examples in person, square footage, price range, what are you thinking overall across the 10 plans?
I'm thinking probably 1,800 up to 3,200 from all of the different plans. And I think what you said in your last video of starting in the 6s and topping out somewhere between 8 and 9 is a good entry point. I do see that going up as they progress, but I think that's a good starting point, yeah.
Well, it sounds like an interesting blend. All right, so with that being said, you got the macro perspective. What we want to do and hop in to physically show you 2 examples and walk you through some of the aesthetic of what 1,800 square feet looks like, what the style looks like, and all that. So that's what we're going to do next. All right, example number 1, we stand inside, basically an example of what we think half of the homes are gonna be like. This is more your townhome model. So I wanted Jordan to walk through a little bit about what you're working with here. So talk to us a little bit about like bedroom, bathroom, like what's important about the floor, kind of floor we stand on now and the orientation.
So this is your typical 3-story townhome that you see in Payne Park. So your first level, when you enter, you're gonna have a bedroom or a den with a full bathroom and then your garage. You're gonna come up to the 2nd floor where you have your main living, dining, and eating area. So you have your kitchen, dining, and living room. Some of these plans will have elevators, which is great if you don't wanna do the stairs all the time, or you have groceries, that kind of thing. And then your 3rd floor is gonna be your primary bedroom, your guest room, and your laundry. So it's multiple floor living with an elevator, which is really unique.
Cool, yeah, so these are, I've always loved these ones because we're on the 2nd story now, so it does really feel like that loft because like the views, the tall windows, and instead of like being on the main floor, and you have like a nice wide kitchen over here, so you can see, because these are, this is 2,000 to 2,400 square feet, right? These aren't 1,400 square feet. You're not getting a townhome for the less a burden of size. You're just getting the turnkey nature. The elevator, if you move the camera there, the elevator's right over here. All right, with that being said, you have other single families to pick from, probably the similar square footage. So who do you think this appeals to? Because it doesn't seem like it's gonna be a price discount thing. It's gonna be an orientation thing.
I think this is perfect for the buyer that wants that very minimal, easy lifestyle, the turn and go. They don't have to worry about the maintenance of the exterior of the home or having their lawn manicured and maintained. It's for the perfect urban buyer, someone from Chicago, New York, even Jersey, Philadelphia, someone that's used to vertical living and is not ready for that Florida style ranch.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's good too for empty nesters, that have been upkeeping with a house and they want it to be super easy and seamless. With the elevator, it makes it accessible to any age.
Yeah, that's cool. And it does look like there's potentially going to be, or it looks like pretty good chance there's going to be balconies on the back of these things. So they're using that height creatively. So think about, which I haven't seen yet, Kingfisher Lake, a set of a building of 4 townhomes with balconies on multiple levels right over that lake could be pretty awesome.
Absolutely. And if you look at Payne Park, the views from the balconies here are of Payne Park and downtown. They're superb. So I think they're going to rinse and repeat what you see here.
Yeah, so Payne Park Village in downtown Sarasota, townhomes could be a really good example of at least 50% of the total homes in Emerald Landing. All right, example number 2. So Emerald Landing obviously is just dirt. So single family wise, which we're gonna talk about now, we're gonna visually, aesthetically paint a picture, we're gonna attempt to, using an example. So there's 3 different widths of home sizes across the single families. If you're familiar, it's 40, 50, and 60. So those are oriented in different ways to different benefits. So Jordan, if we just saw the townhomes, just talked about that, we're thinking there's 100 townhomes, but only maybe 2 or 3 total floor plans that cover those interior and exterior units. What do you think they'll roll out as far as options across the single family floor plan line?
So I think for the smaller 40-foot lots, we're going to see single family homes with rear load garages, maybe similar to something that you'll see in St. Pete in their urban collection. We can look at those plans later, or even something similar to like one of these freestanding villas.
So like this would be a villa, but like what Jordan's getting at is if you had no garage in the front, you can see it's just a vibe, aesthetic, and courtyard in the back.
Right, and I think it's to give you more home for the size of the lot, and that's how they're playing it. It's probably going to be 2 stories. It'll be vertical, so again, you're getting more space. I believe for the 50 and 60-foot lots, you'll be able to get more one-level homes, 2-car garage, maybe even 3, up to 3,000 square feet.
Yeah, so like a good example, like this one behind us, it's around 2,000 square feet, which is the same size as the townhome we were just in. But if you have a narrow lot and you have a 40-foot wide house on a 35 or 30-foot lot, you got to use the air for your square footage. So if you want 2,500 square feet, for instance, you can't go wide, there's nowhere to go. So most of these lots are deep, but they're not that wide. And what Jordan's getting at, what 60 foot would allow you to do is it would allow you to go, it would allow when you walk in the living room, it opens up. you wouldn't have to stack the bedrooms and the kitchen and the dining room. It's that open floor plan everybody wants. Also, if you build a pool, they can build a screen to the planes of the house, so the width is what you want there. 3-car garage that's not a tandem, it's not happening unless you have a 60-foot wide house. So we think that this kind of aesthetic, coastally, will be the vibe. But what will be different is they're going to combine their central living collection, which is the cool urban aesthetic, new construction though, with their regular collections, the Fox Traces of the world, which is the regular single family neighborhood. So that combination could be nice texture overall. Okay, we talked about the gist of the neighborhood, and we also talked about pricing. So availability wise, if you want to do something today in October 2022, what happens?
I think we're getting a little bit closer to the new year. So what I suspect is probably the better half of next year, Q2, Q3, they'll be going vertical and you'll be able to sign a contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you seeing, so, I know a big sensitivity for a lot of the customers are, just build time, right? And not only like, it's annoying, but
Right.
appraisals and costs and price decreases. What do you think? David Weekley always seems like pretty conservative in that nature. What would be your guess on where they're going to stand in April of next year?
I think the build times will be relatively short. I know that Payne Park here in the community that we stand, it takes about 12 months from start to finish. So I see that being cut down. I think the supply chain is eased up a little bit, and I think the homes will be a little easier to build than some of their other central living products. So I do see it maybe being 8 months, 8 to 10 months, which makes it really nice.
Yeah.
Because some of the other Waterside builders, it takes a while.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and just to frame up in summary of like what that means in the grand scheme is, I've gone pretty deep, probably as deep as anyone, on what Waterside's going to be recently. So all those releases, Nautique and all these people that were saying like summer 22, end of 22, I'm not sure anyone's going to get contract signability this year. It's getting pretty close. But we will, what I do think is like, Alcove and Avanti potentially, they're already it signs up, you can see them building. Maybe Nautique, all released before Emerald Landing does. I don't know if Kingfisher Estates will, but I do think by summer of 2023, you might have 5 or 6 neighborhoods that don't exist today to buy. This one's 200 lots, which I think is the second biggest. There's a 216 to 200, there's a 140. You're gonna have 700 different units to pick from, and that's across David Weekley and Pulte and Neil Signature and John Cannon and MI Homes. So I think that having all those to pick from when you go to pick your house is very important, not only for a buyer advantage from a scarcity standpoint, but also just you can actually pick what you like, and you're not picking based on desperation. So it should be interesting. All right, now on to cost. So not as fun, but definitely important. So first I want to talk about pricing as it relates to the total cost of living. Here, what my gauge is you're probably gonna have a mix of spec homes or inventory homes, which is fully designed already, all the way through permit, and then to be built. I can't imagine they're gonna build a bunch of large single families in advance at this price point without giving people some say. So let's take like a $600,000. Say we started at $600,000 as a base price. What you're gonna do from there is you need to add 2 other elements to make it actually a contract. One of those elements is structural upgrades. So you take the $600K. David Weekley doesn't really mess with doing pools with your build, so you're gonna have to do that post-production most likely, so let's park that for a moment. So structural upgrades beyond that. One would be like gourmet kitchen, right? Like if there's gas is Lakewood Ranch, right? So there's gonna be gas most likely in here. Having a built-in range, moving the microwave and the oven, that changes the footprint of a kitchen. Tray ceilings, extended patio, this all affects the permit. So say we had $50,000 to do that. That's one element. That goes to $650. And then you have the land. You can't separate land from the build. So David Weekley, just like Neil Communities, hasn't gotten really crazy about overpricing the land in my experience. So let's say we just throw another 50 there to say that is that. That's what you actually sign the contract for. That's what they have to know before you can move forward. That's what your deposit is based off of, etc. So that right there would be $700K, right? So 6 is never really $600K, it's 7. And then you have one other element you need to add that can happen 45, 60 days after, and that's aesthetic design. So that would be like the color of your countertops. If you want quartz instead of granite, granite is a natural stone, quartz is not. That's how you can get white. if you want to change floor to luxury vinyl instead of hardwood tile or instead of carpet. These affect price, but they are logistics issues. They're not structural, so they can know after. So say you add 75K to that, now you're at 775. If you add a pool post-production on a single family, you're probably like at least 100. So you can kind of gauge that. If a starting price of 6 is probably, you're probably a low 7s to maybe high 6s on a townhome. Low 7s to probably $1 million would be my price range in here, depending on what you're doing, but they're all gonna run on that similar methodology. And then the last thing I wanted to mention on the other burden of cost is fees. So again, we don't know much here, but what I've seen very commonplace is this low to mid $300 a month HOA fee. What you want to look at this though is you want to say, let's say we stick on that single family regime. Say that it's $350, right? A lot of these are including lawn maintenance. So $350, $110 a month for someone mowing your lawn automatically. So that goes to $250 to $240. Fertilizer is usually $50 to make the grass not yellow. So then that goes to $190. And then it doesn't include internet, doesn't include pest control, something like that. So usually that gets whittled down pretty good. So it'll be somewhat reasonable. If they throw in a pool and a gate, then that would just be gravy on this kind of property. And then CDD would be your other element of a tax base. So most likely your CDD on this community is going to be $1,600 a year to $2,200 a year, which will go in your taxes. And in my experience, especially people that are buying these particular homes, New York, New Jersey, Canada, California, Washington State, CDD plus annual taxes in lower Lakewood Ranch, which is Sarasota County, is usually cheaper annually than regular taxes in most net migration states. All right, before we hop to the next section, if you're resonating with this video or any of the videos, even in the slightest, the best next thing you can do, download the free digital guide. It's in the description box below. I'll try to link it right here. 15, 20 pages, absolutely free. It's a flip book. Check that out, and without further ado, let's hop back in. All right, now on to the amenities. So I know that in all my research, no one's saying anything about amenities. They're not saying yes, they're not saying no. And all the new releases, the 5, 6 new neighborhoods, I've only seen one pool cabana, and the rest are basically saying your amenities are the town.
Right.
You can go to Waterside, that is the town, maybe a green space, but nothing else. What are your thoughts on what Emerald Landing will do?
I think it's gonna be similar to what you see in Payne Park. At minimum, you're gonna have a pool, probably a hot tub, grills, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a water taxi dock.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, I know Nautique did something like that. If you have 200 homes, even if you had no pool, that doesn't mean no HOA. It's not that many homes. So I still think you're in that $300, $350 a month. But if they threw in like a pool, like green space, cabana situation, then I think that would give you a nice little oomph. And then if you have townhomes and narrow lots, I think a lot of people won't build their own pools. So you might actually want something like this, more in this kind of neighborhood. Water taxi wise, that makes so much sense because we've seen it in Lake House Cove where like we're gonna do a water taxi and we're gonna drive it over to the downtown Waterside place. But you gotta remember that is on, that Shoreview area is on Kingfisher Lake. So is this one. So why would they do a water taxi to one neighborhood, not all of them? I think it might be a communal Waterside Place development CDD thing, not individual neighborhood HOA.
Right.
So I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, in our final section, what I wanted to do was just give a no nonsense of what does all this mean? Why should you care? We're not running an infomercial. We don't work here. So I wanted to give both of our point of view on like, what does this mean to the area? There's a lot of options. So why don't you kick us off with your opinion first?
Sure. I think to me, what's important about Emerald Landing is the builder himself, David Weekley. I think what's unique about him is he's privately held and operated, he's family owned, so the experience that you get during the build is unmatched in my opinion. I have a pretty extensive background in working in new construction for a few different builders, and my real estate career has allowed me to kind of meet and work with other builders, and David Weekley still, in my opinion, is the best. I think the way that they approach the customer and how they inform them during the build with all the meetings that they host, I think it just keeps you very involved and customer focused. So I think that's unique. You know that you're gonna get a quality built home and you're gonna be communicated with along the way. So I think that's important. Also, I think location is ideal. I think they're doing a really good job at making it central living with its proximity to Waterside Place, which doesn't really exist in Waterside, in my opinion, right now. It's all relatively close, but it doesn't feel walkable. So the fact that you can walk from your home into Waterside Place or take a taxi is really neat.
Yeah, love it. I completely agree with the David Weekley builder thing. I've been dealing with them all, and I built a David Weekley house 3 years ago. And what they, like, you know, a smaller builder, what they lack in that, they can make up for in customer service. Even the guys that were smaller, not anymore, and not everybody handles that growth well. I think people are sensitive to that, and I think it matters more than it ever has mattered. And the other thing is, I always thought, even 6 months ago, when I thought of Payne Park and I heard David Weekley was going there, I was like, if they pick this up and drop it there, it makes so much sense, because they don't really have that. They haven't solved that problem. They've had this amazing water, but they've had these like traditional neighborhoods, Lake House Cove, they had Shoreview. They had just 3 total builders, and three were really high priced, and one was like maybe too high for the land they were on. It was just this awkward thing, and when prices went up, people kind of lost the mystique. And I think they're coming back in with all these guys at the same time. This aesthetic of the right size home that's not a burden of people from moving up north, that's what they're looking for, turnkey. And when they want turnkey, they want it not only in homeowner maintenance, they want it in walkability. They know they're paying a premium for a smaller size, but what they're used to living in the Californias and Seattles and New York and New Jersey and these Washington, D.C., what they're used to getting, they're looking for here, and it's cheaper here. And this actually provides walkability to Waterside Place. This is 22 minutes from downtown Sarasota. This is, you walk outside the door, you feel like you're already in the village. And I think the homes are priced and look the appropriate way. Get a bonus 2-car garage. So I just think the mix is perfect for the area right now, and they're not coming out at $2 million. That it'll be sexier than it has in the past. All right, folks, that is a wrap for this video. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you're not already subscribed, please consider doing so. Secondly, you're looking to buy real estate, sell real estate, relocate, regardless of your timeline, please consider reaching out to my team if you're resonating with these videos at all. Lastly, before you leave, check out the description box below. Free digital guides, free analytical tools, my website. There is going to be an ever-growing library of free resources there, so we would love for you to check that out. Most importantly, thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.